Welcome to Environment Long Island. I'm Karl Grossman, and with me, Gail Pellett and Stephan Van Dam, founders of a very important new organization.
Called Change Hampton.
Changehampton.org.
A new space between Change and Hamptons. And let me start off, please, reading, this is from a guest words column in the East Hampton Star by Gail. Since settlers arrived in the Americas, we have been chopping, clear-cutting, poisoning, developing, paving over, extracting, and controlling the natural world. That process continues here on Eastern Long Island. We just have to look around and we see what we have wrought. Yet we also, looking around, and see the divine in the light of the water, the shorebirds, the walking dunes, the grasses, beach plums and pines, the oak forests of northwest woods, the sublime harbors and omnipotent ocean beaches. We can make a decision to do something now in the landscapes where we live, work, play, and pray. Our survival is all bound up together with the web of life that surrounds us, of which we are only one part. Beautiful, Gail.
Well, thank you, and thank you for having us on this important program. Yeah,
To talk about your important group.
well,
How,
yes.
how did it start, Gail?
Well, we began as a group of neighbors and friends. We'd been together and lived in Sammy's Beach area for a long time. And while we were all very conscious of the global environmental crisis, that the climate change crisis, the extinction of species crisis that we're all facing, we felt we needed to look at things locally. And one of the things that was just driving us nuts was leaf blowers. And they're, as you know, ubiquitous at this time of year everywhere. And it now turns out it's almost all year round. Leaf blowers are all over our landscape and environment. And so, not only do they cause terrible noise pollution that is dangerous for our health, but incredible particulate air pollution. All workers who are using leaf blowers should be wearing masks. And they should give it out to all the neighborhood while they're working. But we felt, we didn't want to end up being about something totally negative. So we started to do more research about leaf blowers, lawn maintenance practices, what we do in our yards. And we discovered that there was something more dangerous about leaf blowers than even the noise and the air pollution. And that is that they disrupt and destroy leaf litter in ecosystems, which are terribly important to pollinators, beneficial insects, toads, reptiles, salamanders, box turtles, and many of the pollinating insects like bees and butterflies regenerate and hibernate over the winter in that leaf litter. So we found out that the town had some regulations, but not much about leaf blowers, and we certainly raised our voice about banning them outright. But we didn't want to just end up being something negative start. So we began to look at all those practices of the lawn and organized Change Hampton to educate people about what turf lawns are in the environment. They're dead ecological zones. Their maintenance requires, huge, massive amounts of water. They're the biggest water crop in America, and that most lawn care ends up using a lot of pesticides. We can talk later about
6.5 million pounds
In
in
Suffolk.
21-22 in Suffolk County alone. 4 times what Westchester uses, 20 times what most other counties in the state are using. So clearly a byproduct of the lawn culture that is destroying not just our drinking water, but as Gail alluded, the web of life. And what we're really doing is we're playing with a functioning food chain, because last that we checked, we cannot pollinate our own food. So if we keep on killing all the insects by blowing things to smithereens, we're really doing ourselves in. And I think there needs to be much more of an awareness for people to see how detrimental those techniques and are to our very survival.
So we developed a website, an educational website, where we started to promote reduce lawns, stop using chemicals and fertilizers and all kinds of pesticides, and grow native plants, and invite pollinators. And then maybe you want to talk about some of the projects we started beyond the
you know,
website. By the way,
sure.
the website is here if people want to, I don't want the light reflecting, but it's
The light is good.
www.changehampton.org. And there's all kinds of information there about what you can do right now. You know, loving leaves and reducing
Maybe
lawn
people
and
can
things.
actually scan this, you can,
Yeah, I'm not sure
You
whether
could-
they'd be able to do so on
yeah,
through
it
the
should
television.
work.
Anyway, so we're great propagandists about,
So we have several
Changing
projects that this initial impetus evolved out of, and one of which was to build a model pollinator community garden in front of Town Hall in East Hampton. And I don't know whether you've actually gone over there and seen it, but it is beautiful beyond our wildest expectations. People seem transformed, not just the folks who work for town government, because suddenly there is a place there, there's color, there's insects, but also people who come to simply get their permits feel transformed and inspired. And we explain the species of native plants that we're using, and generally we're aiming for a 70-30 mix, so you don't have to be religious. If we can get folks to get to 70% native plants, then we're also delivering a service that preserves local insects, and because of the large root systems of native plants, we can help clean the water before it hits the aquifer from which we drink. So this is and interestingly, the native plants have been so rarely seen that they look much more exotic than the exotics do. And so there's a whole beauty component that came out of the design for the garden that we invite folks to come and check out in the fall. We're not cutting things down because the plants offer protection for overwintering insects. And we're also
Birds, yeah.
playing with how to have deer-resistant things there. There's a big deer herd behind the Justice Court. So as the fall comes closer, we're in the fall now, there is certainly some methodologies that are helpful in terms of deterring the deer in choosing native plants that they won't eat as a border component.
right?
And one of your goals is, what is 1,000
Healthy
healthy
yards.
yards in
Yes,
East
we have
Hampton?
an initiative called 1,000 Healthy Yards. You can see and we distribute these yard signs to people who want to join the movement. You know, Karl, this is a movement that has left the gate. And we're not alone out there anymore. About 2 years ago, just before we started Change Hampton, I wrote a very lengthy article called Our Lawns Are Killing Us. And when I was doing the research for that article, I found, I had to go back 25 years to find periodically, every maybe 3, 4, 5 years, somebody would write an article on this theme of the problem with the ecological dead zone of the turf lawn. And you're robbing habitat from insects and birds and pollinators, and the practices to maintain it are also dangerous and poisonous and overusing water. But now, in the last year, there's an article almost every day in the New York Times, the Washington Post, the Guardian, other places. Better Homes and Gardens are telling you not to blow your leaves off your lawn, but to in fact mow them, to mulch them as great natural fertilizer for your lawn, or rake them into your garden beds or under trees. Because one of our sort of commandments is learn to love leaves and use that natural, organic, carbon, nitrogen filled, fertilizer in your garden, in your yard, instead of, blowing it all off and and traipsing it off to the dump,
Let me weigh in on this.
Yeah.
We live on 3 Mile Harbor, which is, walking on the deck, looking out at the water, beautiful, the light play. But there isn't a morning where we don't get up to the sound of either leaf blowing or construction. It is an endless,
Lawnmowers.
incessant mechanical noise that actually has an impact on how birds, insects, and also people communicate with each other. Sound is also something for our survival that is much more acute for our own protection than sight is. And there's an interesting project coming up at Town Hall,
Well,
at Guildhall.
but before that, I think we should talk a little bit more about the model garden that we created at Town Hall. We lobbied the town board, East Hampton Town Board, to create this garden, to take one of the big, they have that huge campus there and it's all turf lawn. And we said, let us take one of these sections. And it was about a 3,800 square foot section of turf lawn. And we will, we will design it and create it and get the community involved in doing it, and they became a partner in it. So it's like a public-private partnership with the town. But we, raised the funds, we found the designer, wonderful designer, Abby Clough Lawless, who did the design of the garden. We have had all kinds of businesses contribute and donate. Whitmore's donated lots of trees. And Fowler's came up with the first group of rakes that we use with, and we had a lot of kids from the local middle and high school students from East Hampton come and participate last fall when we were preparing the beds for the garden. We used this method called the lasagna method, which is you don't just go in and plow up the lawn method, but you lay down on what you would designate as your beds, you lay down cardboard, and then you put mulch and compost on top of that. And about 3 dozen students from East Hampton Middle and High School came and helped us do that. And then this spring, when we went to plant some of these plants, we have a very wonderful landscaping company that helps us do the work, Eco Harmony. But we had a lot of people from the community, students with their parents, come on Father's Day to plant. We planted some 2,000 or more plants in this garden.
70% native.
In June.
But I think I also wanted to mention that having this lasagna method, and there are videos on our website, is a much more effective and cheaper way to reduce your lawn. If you dig it all up, you're talking about tens of thousands of dollars. This is the price of cardboard. This is the price of cardboard and putting some recycling. And then it just turns into this beautiful soil, which is what needed to be established to get over the hump of the turf lawn.
Right, plus suppressing lawn and weeds. And then by spring, after this had been on all winter and you dampen it and wet it and the rains come, you poke your finger in it and you're right into beautiful soil that you've made to plant in.
Let's talk about what's increasingly been put on the soil of Eastern Long Island, mega mansions included. You recently appeared before the East Hampton Town Board calling for a change in the zoning code.
The zoning codes,
The statement you read, Gail We're usually concerned about all the issues that threaten our biodiversity, the clearing of land for ever larger houses, decks, garages, driveways, and pools. And let me just read this paragraph. Sadly, we've watched over the past 4 decades as real estate profits reshaped the character of this community, and we have listened for years to the complaints of longtime residents about the unraveling that has come with a frenzied and speculative real estate market. Indeed, elsewhere on the East End, this has become a Shelter Island has recently enacted a moratorium on mega mansion construction, Southold Town as well on the East End.
Right, right.
You're deeply involved in this. How
Well,
do
it's all related. You know, what we've all watched, those of us who've been here for, several decades or more out here on the East End, we've watched in the last, say, 10 years or so, modest size houses being replaced by these much larger houses that get built right out to the end of property. They require, if they have more bathrooms, they require bigger septic systems. They have to pay over more for driveway and parking cars. So everything, the built environment takes up more and more of our landscape. And so we are involved. This was a statement from Change Hampton at this zoning board meeting where there is a whole effort afoot to rethink and redo the codes for the town, the zoning codes. But what never gets considered is the landscape because they come in and they clear out 150-year-old oak trees. We need these oak trees desperately. They're the keystone plants in our environment. They support more than 500 species of insects and pollinators. Oak trees do. So this is what that campaign is about, and to make people conscious that these issues are all connected, and they're connected to the health of our bays. We have also sort of an initiative we've done is what you do in your yard ends up in our groundwater, our drinking water, and our bays. I don't know whether you want to hold that up so it can be, and talk more about
So the
that.
question is, do you really want to drink your lawn, or would you rather not?
Right.
There is clearly insecticides and pesticides. People are concerned about ticks, we all are, and the diseases they can bring. But there's natural strategies that can be employed that don't kill all the other insects that we need to maintain that functioning food chain. So rather than spraying the entire yard, spray yourself and save the insects that we need for that functioning food
Right.
chain.
Right.
We ran these ads, we've gotten great response to it. I wanted to also go back to what Gail just mentioned about the overdevelopment that we're witnessing here. Where the bigger house means more profits, more landscaping, more bathrooms. And but that the code language as it currently exists seems to favor the overdevelopment. For instance, if somebody puts a parking lot and a lawn into the wetlands, they will then come to the zoning board and seek relief from them having violated local law in order to legalize it. And I think there needs to be a functioning mechanism where the laws prevent this from the beginning, and where there is sufficient enforcement to deter that kind of behavior from future speculators, builders, or other folks. We had a neighbor building was sold, and the lawn was installed, is polluting the wetlands of 3 Mile Harbor. The parking lot is still there. No action has yet actually been taken to have this redressed and to have.
This also then starts to connect to the affordable housing issue. We can't sort of get into one of these issues without it starting the other, because when we began, and we can probably put that poster down now, but when we began this and looking at the blowers, for example, we wanted to be able to, who do you call to enforce the small limited regulations the town has on leaf blowers? what you call the enforcement department, but they were so understaffed and so overwhelmed that by the time you get somebody out to talk about, is this person following the regulations in the field, that person has packed up, they're on to another house somewhere or whatever. So we really try to focus on property owners and we actually have a bilingual leaflet in which we address property owners, contractors, landscapers, et cetera, to try to raise these values about the landscape and health. What we need for our health and a non-toxic environment and our drinking water and the health of our marine life, et cetera. So we see it all connected. Without affordable housing, we can't staff the enforcement department or these are the issues.
But I mean,
You know.
what's underlying all of this is that the bigger house means more money in everybody's pocket. And that is obviously, greed is the underlying principle of destroying our environment. And the question is, once the water, we have a very complicated situation with ocean, bay, harbor, groundwater, and a real concern is groundwater rise. Because that will not just affect coastal areas, but will also be all over the country caused by sea level rise. Groundwater will rise, and there's a lot of things that we would rather keep down under the surface from bubbling up. For instance, we're in a septic crisis in Suffolk County. I mean, there's a government effort to help and change that. But you can't really defend against a groundwater rise. And given that we drink from our aquifer, I think a better understanding of the delicate relationship between all these different bodies of water is really an existential question to whether this stays a viable place that people want to visit.
Yeah, well, Western Long Island blew its water supply, over pumping in Brooklyn hundreds of years ago, and a huge aqueduct system and a reservoir system was built to get water from upstate, but it's been, I mean, the city of New York says we can't provide any additional water to Long Island. We have to,
Right,
So
Well,
they
they built the
we have a
third tunnel.
we have a single aquifer that serves us out here on eastern Long Island. And I think we need to be really conscious about how we're preserving that aquifer. And what the problem with the turf lawns is they require more water to survive. Although there is an organic approach to lawn care, if you want to, we always say, we encourage you to reduce your lawn size. We all like to have a little lawn for a picnic table or our kids or grandkids to play on. But to reduce the lawn and treat it organically, which means you let it grow a little taller, about 3.5 inches is best. You add clover to it because the clover absorbs and retains carbon and helps with the health of your the other fescue material in your lawn, and that you only water it maybe once a week or twice a week, and it will be fine. It will, because we like a lawn path through even our town hall garden. We have a lawn at the center, and that's how we care for it.
A little statistic here. In the United States, we use 9 billion gallons to water our lawns every day. By some estimates, that is equal to 1 Lake Mead that we're flushing down every day. This is water we don't really have.
Right, so
And the
it's,
Suffolk County Water Authority rightly has asked the towns on the South Fork to limit the amount that mega
super
users
users.
or super users who draw millions of gallons for some notion of beauty that is really a toxic wasteland. So perhaps we need to also reimagine what beauty is in this regard, and the native plants and the local trees are what we have and what we should focus on to preserve and keep our water drinkable.
as Native Americans say, water is life.
Yeah.
And on the East End, we really have lessons that we should learn from what's happened to the western portion of Long Island. How can people get involved in your organization?
Well, one thing they can do is go to our website and they can join up and receive our regular newsletters, which are very informative and educational. And we have periodic events and things we do and encourage people to join and come in. We put on a beauty and biodiversity garden tour. We have a meeting coming up where we're going to be planning and visioning our future as an organization and strategies, et cetera. And we've invited all the people who receive our newsletter to join us in that. We distribute the yard signs, so people can join and participate in many ways.
And we
Yeah.
build community doing this way. And
Yes.
there is one thing that, given that global action seems not doing the job, that if we can do this locally, each of us, but together, we control more land than any government or corporate entity east of the Mississippi. We can do this right
In
now.
our yards.
We don't need anybody's permission. Go and join us in what we can do right now on changehampton.org. And makes you feel better, makes us feel better, builds community, preserves the wonderful place that we have here. Let's not wait until it is too late to do the right thing.
Thank you so much, Gail Pellett and Stephan Van Dam, for doing what you're doing, and folks would join in. Folks should join in. I'm Karl Grossman. Thanks for watching.